let me come back here. There we go. We've had a few multiple choice questions. Let's get stuck back into it though. And also, I'm going to try and see if I can share that. Oopsies. Hang on. Let me see if I can just put on that code onto the chat there. If anyone's looking for the Kahoot code, if you get logged out or something like that, or you haven't been able to get back in yet, let me try and type that Kahoot code for everybody, and then hopefully you can access that again if you need to get back in or if you get logged out. Okay, all right, 15, nice. I order Parangolo. We've had our 5 multiple choices. Scoreboard, Wilma is up the top. Let's get now. We've got to direct answers again like we did last time. The next 5 questions, you've got to type the answer into the vocab question. Remember, if there are more than 1 or 2 answers, and Duff, just give me one of those answers. Any one will do. And see how you go. What does push mean? Type your answer in. All right, what did we come up with? Wow, lots of different answers. Foot was the right answer though. Nice. All right, Wilma's still on the top, untouchable at the moment. What does pater mean? Well, they're going to fall away. Father, nice. Most people seem to have got that one. Oh, still on top. Epiginosko. What does epiginosko mean? It's a trick for you. Well, lots of different answers. The right ones are, though, I recognize. Oh, only a couple of you got epiginosko. All right. Aster. What does aster mean? A little easier. Means star. Spot on. Oh, you got that one right. Nice and easy. All right, last open-ended question. Metanoia. 2 seconds left. For that. Few options there as well. And yes, I repent. Someone put repent there. It is a verb. You want to put in I repent. Make sure you know that it's a verb, not repentance. All right, changing the leaderboard. Okay, next lot of questions then. In the following 5 questions, you have 4 answers that you have to slide and place in the correct order. You remember these from last week? So let's put them all in the correct order. And once you've done that, make sure you press the K at the bottom, and that way you'll know exactly what's going on. So here we go. What's the plural declension of Adelphi? Adelphi. Okay, giving you plenty of time here. Another 10 seconds to go. Whoa, not so confident on there. It should be Adelphi, Adelphas, Adelphone, Adelphis. In fact, Kahoot gave it to you in exactly the order you want it to be in. All right, Luke's still at the top, hard to chase down. Complete the following paradigm. Eluomen, Eluo. How does that paradigm go? Eluomen, Eluo. 5. Everyone's done pretty well there. Eluomen, Eluo, Elueto, Eluomatha, Elueste, Eluonto. Nice. What is it? It's the imperfect middle paradigm. All right, let's have a look at the next question then. Luke, still hard to chase. Still out in front. Okay, complete the following paradigm. Elthon, Elthes. Okay, so this is the aorist paradigm of Urkamai. What would the aorist paradigm of Urkamai look like? Elthon, Elthes. Five seconds left. All right, it is Elthon, and it tells you that it likes to take the imperfect endings. So we're basically just going to go down the imperfect paradigm with our elf stem. So Elthon, Elthes, Elthen, Elthomen, Elthete, Elthon. All right, next. Luke still way up front. Chase him down, people. What is the singular declension of our stair? Learned this last week, just last week. It's our third declension noun paradigm. Five seconds left. Doing pretty well. Aster, the first part of it, that declension is aster, astera, asteros, asteri. Nice. Okay, that's our third declension noun paradigm. We need to start working on getting that into our heads. We learned it last week. All right. Hey, change to the top of the leaderboard. All right, now we've got another puzzle. Double points. What is the aorist active imperative paradigm of phileo? Double points up for grabs here. Ten seconds left. It seems to be slowing everyone down a bit. 5 seconds. 50-50. Son, sato, sate, satosan. That is your aorist active imperative endings. And of course, with filet, the eto verb, all it does is lengthen that eta. That sigma lengthens the eta all the way along there. All right, what do we got here? Jade on fire. Chase it down, team. All right, so our last section of questions. There are more than one correct answer. You must choose all the correct answers to get the points. You know how these ones work, so let's see how we go. Okay, what are the future and aorist principal parts of ballo? How well do you know your table of principal parts? Yes, it's ebalon and balleo. Okay, notice that we've got a lot less time here. What do we get? Only a few of you answer the question that time. You have to move fast if you want these points. Which of the following are neuter second declension nouns? Only got 20 seconds. Neuter second declension. 10 seconds. 5 seconds. Got to move fast on these questions, but nice. Ergon and biblion are our only neuter second declension nouns here in that group. Nice. Don't just need to know what the word means, but you need to know what group it belongs to. Jade on top. What are the future and aorist principal parts of ago? What are the principal parts of ago? How well do you know your principal parts table? Five seconds to go. Nice. Axo is the future and egagon is the aorist principal part of ago. Nice work. Tricked a few of you though. Shade's going to be hard to correct, although Wilma's on the chase here. What cases does Greek use to give more information regarding time-like words? 10 seconds left. 2 seconds. You're all right in the sense that the nominative is never used. The dative and the genitive and the accusative can be all used. Accusative, time, how long? Genitive, time, during. Dative, time, at which. Nice. Okay, what do we got here? Jade, still out in front. It's going to be hard to chase down. Last question. Double points, though. What three below would be part of the dictionary lexical entry for Cosmois? What do you need to put a dictionary entry together for Cosmois? 5 seconds. 3 seconds. All right, you need the nominative singular, cosmos. You need the genitive ending, is. And you need the article, ha. Nice. Doesn't look like anyone got tricked over here. All right, so here we go. The podium, Jade. Woohoo! Well done, Jade. Congratulations, Jade. Okay, I need to kill the Kahoot music before I want to kill myself. Okay, awesome. Well done. I hope that was a bit of fun. Well done, Jade. Congratulations. We've had a different winner every week so far. So get in there, keep learning your vocab, keep learning your paradigms. Stick with that and work hard on it. It will pay you good dividends. And as I said, I don't think anyone's got the excuse of saying they don't have enough time at the moment. We're all sitting around doing nothing but learning Greek vocab and paradigms. I mean, that's all we're doing, isn't it? It's too much fun. Geez. I'm getting some funny faces back at me here. Okay, devotion then. Let's have a quick chat about our devotion this morning. I thought I'd do a little devotion on the use of the genitive noun. The use of the genitive noun. When I say genitive, you say of. Yeah, thank you. Excellent, thank you. And that's great. That's exactly what you should be doing. That's exactly what you should be thinking. And it's easy to think like that, and it's right for you to think like that. And as far as things go, that kind of thinking about the genitive will serve you well all the way through first year Greek, and it's certainly going to be a good background for you going forward. We will look at only one more. Duff's only going to introduce you to one other use of the genitive before the end of the year, and that's not till like chapter 20 right at the end. We'll meet another use of the genitive later in the year. But as far as things go, when I say genitive, you say of, and that's going to be good. That's what you should do. But the reality is that the genitive case is a lot more kind of complicated than that. And when you get into some bigger Greek, and we go like, and you open up into like Wallace, and you have a look at here, and you look at the genitive use here, Wallace is going to list over 30 different uses of the genitive case. Over 30 different uses. And that's great because you only know one at the moment. So that's wonderful. And you'll be glad to realize that we're not going to try and get you to learn 30 different uses this year by any stretch of the imagination. But it is good to be aware that there is more going on with the genitive than just simply of. And certainly next year, second year Greek, all the second years at the moment in John's Gospel are getting introduced slowly to some of these other uses of the genitive case. And over the course of second year, John's Gospel, 1 Corinthians, third year, Romans, and other courses, you're going to be growing in your knowledge of how the genitive case is used. And so basically this morning is just a bit of a teaser for that kind of thinking and how the genitive case can be used. And I particularly want to talk about two different uses of the genitive, and it's the subjective genitive or the objective genitive. The subjective genitive or the objective genitive. And this can get a little bit confusing sometimes. So let me try and give you an example that might help us think about what I'm talking about here. So here we've got a screen shared up here with you. So if I was to say this sentence to you, this sentence, if I was to say, thank God for the salvation of Rome, thank God for the salvation of Rome, then, what am I saying? Thank God for the salvation of Rome. What am I actually saying in that sentence? Because the reality is, if that's all the sentence I have, I could be saying two completely different things, couldn't I? I could be saying, well, we're a small little town and we were being invaded, and then Rome came and protected us and brought about our salvation. Yeah? Who heard that sentence being read like that? Rome was the one who came and saved us. Thank God for the salvation of Rome. That's one way to read that sentence. Yeah? The other way to read that sentence is to say that Rome was under attack and it got saved. Thank God for the salvation of Rome. Thank God that Rome was saved. Now, can you see that both of those two understandings come from that one sentence? Do I mean, thank God that Rome was saved from some disaster? Or do I mean, thank God that Rome came and saved me from some disaster? Both of those two meanings come from that sentence. And the question really is, what does this of mean? If it's an objective genitive, then I'd be saying, thank God that Rome was saved, right? Rome is the object of the salvation. Rome was saved. Thank God that Rome was saved from some disaster. That's an objective genitive, an objective genitive. But if I'm saying, thank God that Rome came and saved me, well, then that would be a subjective use of the genitive. Yeah? It means that Rome is the one doing the salvation. It's a subjective use of the genitive. Thank God for the salvation of Rome. Can you see that that sentence by itself is a little bit ambiguous? Rome could either be the object of the salvation, the one who came and did the saving, or it could be the subject of the salvation, the thing that was saved from some other disaster. And that's just the nature of this of and of a sentence like that. We can translate that. So in Greek, if we're looking at this sentence, Rome would just be in the genitive case here, right? And so the question is, what does that genitive mean? We can translate it as of. That's fine. That's great. Thank God for the salvation of Rome. But the question is, what does that of actually mean? Does it mean Rome was the one doing the saving? Or does it mean Rome was the one being saved? You can't tell, actually. It could mean either of those two things. And without any further context, then that would be all that we have. We have no information. We have to just try and figure it out. So let's take it out of the hypothetical and let's take it into the New Testament. For instance, what do you think this means? What we have here is we've got the revelation, apocalypsis, the revelation, and we can see Jesu Christu. It's in the genitive, isn't it? What is our genitive endings here? Jesu Christu, right? So the revelation of Jesus Christ. This is Revelation chapter 1, verse 1. So when we read that and we say, okay, this is the revelation of Jesus Christ, and we translate it as of, because it's a genitive, that's great. So we're going to translate that as the revelation of Jesus Christ. But the question is, what does that of mean? Is it a subjective genitive? I.e., does it mean that Jesus is doing the revelation? I.e., what's contained in this book is what Jesus revealed to John so that he could know what to write. Jesus is the one who's doing the revealing to John. That would be the subjective use of the genitive, the revelation of Jesus Christ. Or does it mean that what we're about to read is going to reveal Jesus to us? It's the revelation of Jesus Christ. It's the objective use of the genitive, that Jesus is going to be revealed to us as the Lamb who is slain, as the one who's worthy to unroll the scroll, take the scroll and unroll it, as the Alpha and the Omega, as the rider on the white horse, the one whose sword streams out of his mouth with blazing eyes. Is Jesus the one who's revealed through this book, or is Jesus the one who is doing the revelation to John in this book? You can see how that's slightly ambiguous, yeah? It could be both. It could be either. And it's a little bit tricky. It gets a little bit ambiguous. Or perhaps even more so, what about this phrase? Pistis Christou. This is a massive phrase. Pistis, you've just learnt in your vocab, I think. Is that right? Or is it in vocab chapter 13? You should be maybe heading down that road. Pistis means faith or faithfulness. Duff just gives it to you as faith, but it does mean faithfulness. And again, we've got here the genitive of Christ, Christou, the genitive. Let me highlight that for us again. All right, here's our genitive ending here. Christou, 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 genitive. The faith of Christ or the faithfulness of Christ. Again, the question is, what does this mean? Could it be, well, it can be both. It can be a subjective genitive, right? And this phrase turns up a lot in the New Testament. Does it refer to the faith of Christ, or does it refer to our faith in Christ? Faith of Christ, subjective genitive. Our faith in Christ, an objective genitive. Does it mean the faithfulness of Christ, or does it mean our faith in Christ? Now, that's going to be pretty important, right? That's going to be massively important, particularly when it comes to a phrase like this in Romans chapter 3. I need to get rid of that. Let me just clear this stuff off here. Okay. Romans chapter 3, verse 22. Pretty important verse, because here we've got two of these problematic genitives. We've got the righteousness of God. Here's a genitive here. We've got the righteousness of God. There's one genitive. But the righteousness of God has come through faith. And here's another genitive. Through faith of Jesus Christ. So in this awesome verse that we all know so well, the question is actually pretty profound. What does the righteousness of God mean? Is it the righteousness which God has in and of himself as a character, which would be a subjective genitive? Or is it the righteousness that God imparts? Objective genitive. And what does it mean that it comes through faith of Jesus Christ. Does it mean that the righteousness of God comes through Jesus' faithfulness? All right? Well, yeah, that's almost certainly true, isn't it? Right? It was only made possible for us because of Jesus' faithfulness. Or does it mean what I think we all want it to mean, what the NIV translates as meaning for us all the time, that God's righteousness is imparted to us, objective genitive, through our faith in Jesus Christ, which would be an objective genitive as well, right? So this is a little bit tricky sometimes. Now, please understand this devotion is not intended to kind of undermine your understanding of justification by faith alone or anything like that. By no means. That is certainly a wonderful truth that's taught throughout the scriptures, and it's our only sure foundation for our salvation. That's absolutely certain. But this phrase and these genitives are a little bit tricky at times and a little bit ambiguous. Perhaps they're deliberately so. Is Revelation, well, Revelation is both a letter that Jesus revealed to John, isn't it? And it's also a place where we see Jesus being revealed. Maybe it's supposed to be both. Or that it's both true that God is righteous and that he was shown to be righteous through Jesus Christ's faithfulness as well, and that God imparts righteousness and righteous standing on those who put their faith and trust in Christ too. All those things are true, and so, perhaps it's supposed to be a little bit deliberately ambiguous. But these are massive debates that are ongoing debates in the church still right now and in theology right now on the nature of these genitives. Now, particularly these ones in Romans, I'm going to leave for you till third year. It's just a bit of a teaser, and you can have this debate with Jonathan when you look at Romans in third year. He always, this is a big issue that comes up every year in third year that you'll wrestle with. But for now, I just want you to know that there is more to life than just the genitive meaning of, or at least when we translate of, we've got to try and figure out what does that of mean. That's the biggest issue that we're trying to face. And so I'm going to pray, and then we'll think a little bit about what's going to happen next. So let me pray. Dear Lord God, we thank you so much for your word. We thank you for how Greek helps us to read in high definition, and we can think about these little nuances more. We thank you that in Revelation, you have revealed yourself to the Apostle John and revealed to him what to write so that we could have that book. But also in that book, you reveal yourself to us, and we know more about you because of it. These wonderful double truths. And also thank you that your righteousness, that you are righteous, and that your righteousness does come through Jesus' faithfulness. You're shown to be righteous through his faithfulness, and that not only that, you make us righteous through our faith in Jesus. These are all deep and profound truths, Lord, and they come more to the our understanding when we know Greek better. And so, Lord, we pray that you'll give us energy and enthusiasm and perseverance to keep working. And as we learn all these paradigms and all these new Greek, Lord, help us to not lose focus on the fact that we're doing all of this so that we can know you better and love you more as we get to know you better through your word. And we pray that would always be the motivation at the forefront of our minds and our hearts, and you refresh us in that knowledge of you as we learn Greek together. And we ask it in your name. Amen. Okay, so a few strange things seem to be happening to me right now. Firstly, we haven't been kicked out of our Zoom meeting, and that to me seems like good news. But we're just going to ride our luck on that, I guess. I'm kind of hoping that things have changed. I know the college was working on a few things, so perhaps we've actually been locked in here and we don't have to change our Zoom meeting at all, and we can just stay together, which would be a win, definitely. So we'll just keep riding this and see if it keeps working for us. And the other thing is that my volume and my audio seems to be working perfectly fine too. Is that right? Can I get a thumbs up from people? You can hear me perfectly well? Good. Okay, cool. Well, this is a win. Win for technology. Zoom's not kicking us out and you can hear me. Wonderful. All right, so we want to learn some Greek then. Now, last week we started off looking at our third declension nouns. That was where we were last week, and this is where we want to be this week as well. So third declension nouns. Here's our little table of joy that we've all grown to know and love when it comes to noun world. Get this out of the way here. Every noun fits somewhere on this table. You guys know this by now, right? Every noun fits somewhere on this table. And we spent last week down here, right down the bottom here in these third declension nouns. We learned, we met for the first time our main group of third declension nouns. And that was this strange group here, our unisex third declension nouns. Are nouns that could either be masculine nouns or feminine nouns. They're both in this one group, masculine nouns and feminine nouns. In the same group, there are unisex nouns. And our favorite noun there was aster, asteros, and it means star. And we learned how that noun behaved, its pattern, its paradigm, its declension last week. But you need to get to know that. This is by far our biggest group of third declension nouns. This is the most popular group. There are a lot of nouns in the third declension world that belong in this group. And we met it and we tried to get our head around how it worked last week. Then after that, we met feminine only third declension nouns. Polis is our favorite noun there. And remember, with our third declensions, we always have to learn the nominative singular and the genitive form because it's irregular. The stem is not the same, right? There's a change here, and this is always the way. We're going to have to change. The stem's going to be different. And so we need to change. We need to learn the nominative singular as well as the genitive ending and the article it takes because you can't always tell it third declension nouns. But anyway, we learned polis as our feminine only group, and that was a lot smaller group, maybe about a third of this group over here. And then we met our masculine and only group, and this is a very small group of nouns, masculine third declension nouns, but still some pretty important words like king and like high priest and things like that, fairly important words. So we need to make sure that we learn our masculine third declension nouns as well. And what that means is that the only thing we're left with in this box over here is our neuter third declension nouns, right? And so we want to spend our time today looking at these nouns here. And that's what we're going to be doing. We want to learn our neuter third declension nouns. And I told you last week that third declension nouns are a little bit, well, they're a little bit of a hodgepodge, really. Any noun that doesn't fit in the first and second declension has to fit in here somewhere. And we saw that particularly with the words like father and mother and daughter or whatever. They're kind of in this aster group, in this unisex noun group, because that's definitely where they belong, but they don't behave exactly like aster. There's a tiny little vowel change here or there, but pretty much exactly the same. But anyway, when that comes to our neuter nouns, well, it's a bit of a hodgepodge as well. We'd love there to just be one little group here of third declension neuter nouns, and we'd like it to be all simple like that. But life's not that simple when we come to third declension nouns, unfortunately. And so when we come to the third declension neuter nouns, what we discover is that there are two different groups of third declension neuter nouns that we can have, right? There's a group number one, third declension neuter number one group nouns, and third declension neuter number two group nouns. There are two different third declension neuter nouns. And so we want to look at how both of these different groups of neuter nouns behave. And the first one we're going to look at together today is soma, somatos, to. Soma, somatos, to. That one belongs here. This is our first group of neuter third declension nouns. Soma, somatos, to. And the question is, how does it behave, right? That's what we're looking at. But before we look at that, let me just, let's look at that. Let's have a look at how does soma, somatos behave. Here's the paradigm for you. All right, this is what we're going to have to learn and write down. It's another third declension paradigm. There's a few of them coming together now. As always, I will put these PowerPoints up for you so that you can download them and have a check through them and look through them. But soma, okay, this is how it looks like, our third declension neuter noun. Soma, soma, somatos, somati, somata, somata, somatone, somasin. Now, there's some good news when it comes to this, really. Actually, there's lots of things that we're going to see that we'd like to see when it comes to this new group of neuter nouns. Firstly, notice that, let me see if I can get some colouring in going on here. Firstly, notice that the nominative singular and the accusative singular are exactly the same form. We like that because that's always the case for neuter nouns, isn't it? And also the nominative plural and the accusative plural are exactly the same form. And we've been pretty used to that when it comes to neuter nouns ever since the beginning of our time together. So that's the first bit of good news. This soma, soma, somata, somata. Right? These are all exactly the same as each other because the nominative singular and accusative singular, nominative plural and accusative plural are the same form whenever we're dealing with neuter nouns. So that's good news, right? That's exactly what we'd like to see. Notice also, and this is kind of like what we had in the second declension nouns, the ending for the genitive is kind of like the ending for the aster, unisex third declension nouns. Now that ending, that genitive ending from aster is being used here, and the dative ending from aster as well is being used here as well. So that's a lot like what we saw happening in the second declension, where the masculine endings were being used by the neuter for the genitive and the dative. Well, now it's the aster, that unisex endings, that are being used here for soma in the genitive and the dative singular. We've also got own. This is a nice, happy, safe space down here. This genitive plural ending hasn't changed ever across all our nouns. Own has always been the genitive plural ending, and so that's nice. And we've got that kind of classic third declension sin dative plural ending that we looked at last week as well. So there's a lot that's sort of nice about this that we could kind of get, and it is a whole new declension. I won't try and hide that from you, but it's not so bad either. That's fairly nice as far as declensions go. It's the kind of thing that we'd like to see happening. But you just have to realize soma, somata, os, somati, tata. Okay, so that is our first group of third declension neuter nouns. Our first group of third declension neuter nouns. And as far as like Duff goes and your vocab goes and what you're working on, just to help you figure it out and make sure that you've got everything in the right place, I'm looking at Duff vocab chapter 12 here. I've got that up on your screen for you. So this group of third declension neuter nouns is this group here. All these words here are the ones I'm talking about that go in this soma, somatos group of third declension neuter nouns. So pur, fire, and puros, and huder, and hudatos, phos, and photos, ima, and martos, telema, telematos, honama, honamatos, pneuma, pneumatos, rema, rematos, stoma. All right, all these words here, fire, water, light, blood, will, name, spirit, word, mouth, body, all these words here are belonging to that group that we just learned, soma, somatos, to, the first group of third declension nouns. Okay, you with me so far? So when you're putting together all your vocab words, you don't just need to know that Honama, honomatos, to means name, but you need to know that it belongs to this first group of third declension nouns and third declension neuter nouns, because that's where all these ones belong. So all these should be in one group in your vocab cards with a rubber band around them or on their own color coordinated cards or however you want to do it. Make sure that you remember not just what these words mean, but what group they belong to. I think I've told you that enough. Okay, so that's soma, somatos, to, our first group of neuter third declension nouns. But there is another group of neuter third declension nouns. So let's meet them quickly now as well. The other group is ethnos, ethnous, to. Ethnos, ethnous, to. Ethnos meaning the nations or something like that, where we get our word ethnic or ethnicity from, ethnos. And so that's our second group of third declension neuter nouns. We need to make sure we know how it behaves as well. So how does ethnos, ethnous, to look? How does it behave? Well, let's have a look at it. Here it is. This is how all the words in that group are going to decline. They're going to look like this. Ethnos, ethnos, ethnous, ethnai, ethne, ethne, ethnon, ethnesen. So note a couple of things here again. Exactly what we want for neuter nouns. The nominative singular and the accusative singular form are exactly the same. And the nominative plural and the accusative plural form are exactly the same as well. We like that. That's the way neuter nouns always behave. So that's good news for us. Our genitive plural, still got that same own ending. It's always the same across every single noun. That genitive plural is own. We've got our classic dative plural sin ending here as well. And then, well, we've got some other stuff we need to learn. What more can I say? Don't blame me. Blame Greek. Not my fault. I know there's a lot of paradigms piling up on you here, but it is going to be okay. Remember, this is the Greek fog, but the Greek fog will lift. Today's hard Greek is 3 weeks' times easy Greek. You just got to keep up with it. Okay? So this is how the second group of neuter third declension nouns behaves. Ethnos, ethnos, ethnous, ethnai, ethne, ethne, ethnon, and ethnesen. This is how they would all behave. And in terms of the words we're talking about, well, again, this is definitely a much smaller group of neuter third declension nouns. The first group that we looked at, soma, somatos, to, that group of third declension nouns is a lot bigger than this group here. But in terms of what we're looking at for your vocab, I'm on vocab chapter 13 now, because remember, we're just looking at both of these chapters together. Vocab chapter 13, and the words we're talking about are these ones here. All those words on the left-hand side of the column of vocab chapter 13, these words belong in the same group, and they all behave like ethnos. Ethnos, nations, right? And Duff's kind of thrown you under the bus here, because these really should be giving you the form with the like I want you to look at here, this, like this, ethnos, ethnous, to. Same with somatos, somatos, to, ethnos, ethnous, to. You want to learn your third declension nouns with their nominative singular, their genitive form, and their article always. And in Duff chapter 13, if I just go back to that, he's kind of thrown you under the bus a little bit because he doesn't do it. Back in chapter 12, he made sure he gave you all the nominative singulars, the genitive plural, the genitive singulars, and the articles. Hasn't done that here. He hasn't done that with the third declension masculines down here that we looked at last week. He didn't do it with the third declension feminines over here that we looked at last week either. He starts off doing it in chapter 12, but then he gets lazy in chapter 13. And that's unfortunate. Don't you get lazy like Duff. Don't be like Duff. Do all your vocab with the forms of the nominative singular. If it's a third declension noun, give it the nominative singular, the genitive form, and the article that it takes across all your third declension nouns when you're making your vocab cards. Okay, so let's just stop that for a second and let's come together here. Has anybody got any questions about that? That's the first thing I want to ask. Anybody got any questions about all of that? So.
Hi. So you just said Duff hasn't recorded it for us in those 3 parts that we should aim for. So then how do we know what the genitive form is of the noun if we're not familiar with it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you're probably going to be able to infer it from what we've learned about soma and somatos and ethnos and ethnous. So let me just go back there and let me see if I can figure that out for you. So ethnos, ethnus, that's going to be elios, probably elius, ethos, etus. But I'm going to have to check all these up because that does not help you at all. Because sometimes the nominative singular is irregular. That's the way we've got. That's the whole problem of this. So I will try and check that up. But yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, that's a really good question because stuff really does not help. So I will. I'll see if I can do that. I haven't done it before. But I'll put together a list of what these words should look like for you here in chapter 13. These neuter ones and these masculine ones and these feminine ones for you. I'll do that for you guys and I'll get it up onto Google Classroom for you.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Any other questions? In terms of learning, okay, new paradigms, but no new grammar. No new grammar. As we said all the way along, this is exactly the same. If it's a third declension or first declension or second declension now, it doesn't matter. If it's accusative, then it's the object. If it's a nominative, then it's the subject. If it's genitive, then you think, oh, if it's dative, you think 2 or 4. Nothing's changed in that grammar. It's just different ways of telling you how these nouns behave and these different groups of nouns behaving. So hopefully that makes sense. Any other questions? Okay, well then, if that's the case, if there are no other questions, then I've got some really good news for you. Here's the good news. You have now learned every single form of Greek noun that there is. This table is full now. There's nothing left there. There's nothing left for you to look at. There's nothing left for you to know. This table is all that there is. Every single noun will fit somewhere on this table. Every single noun looks exactly, fits somewhere here. There is no other groups of noun. There is nothing else up my sleeve. There's no other buts or howevers or anything else here. Every noun that you're ever going to meet throughout your whole entire life of Greek study will fit into one of those groups. There is nothing else to know. And that's great news, right? You guys have learned it all already. So congratulations. Well done. You've come to the end of noun paradigm world. There will be no more noun paradigms up my sleeve at all, or anything else that you ever need to know about Greek. Every single noun that you ever meet in the New Testament will fit into one of those paradigms and one of those groups. So all you have to do, it's easy. All you have to do is learn this table, learn your vocab, and know where every single word you learn in your vocab belongs on this table. Learn which group it belongs on. Be able to pin the noun on the table so that no matter whatever noun I give you, you know exactly which group it belongs to on this table. Learn the table, learn all your vocab and where your words belong to on the table, and then learn the paradigms for how each one of these groups behave. And once you know all that, then you know everything. Easy peasy, right? You guys are up for that. And that's really good news, and that's really quite exciting. If you're not excited about that, then you should be, right? That's good news. No more noun paradigms for you. We've just got those ones. That's all there is to know. So congratulations. That's a great achievement, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a new paradigm sheet that's going to help you just get your head around these third declension nouns again. It's going to have all the ones that we learned last week, as well as the ones that we learned this week on it as well, right? And so we're going to just keep practicing these third declension noun paradigms. Need to make sure we get them down, make sure we get them in our head, okay? Right, so that's good. Now, but that doesn't mean we have learned everything. I hope you do realize that. We're only at chapter 12 or 13 and up. And it doesn't mean that we've even learned everything in chapter 12 and 13 and up. Because there's a few other things that we need to meet that aren't just about nouns anymore. We need to skip out of noun world for a second and go back to thinking about adjectives just for a moment, okay? So we've done everything there is to learn about nouns. There are no more nouns groups to learn. But we do have to think about adjectives together for a second. Because we've looked at adjectives before, but that was a long, long time ago. It was back in summer school. Do you remember those days? Those wonderful days when the sun was shining and we could all walk around and we could say hi and give each other a hug. Oh, those glorious days, pre-COVID days. They seem like so long ago, right? In those glorious days, we learned adjectives and we met adjectives before, right? Remember, adjectives are words that describe nouns for us. And we looked at how adjectives behave. We saw that they could behave in 3 different ways, didn't we? They could be attributive adjectives. That's the most normal way that they're used. They could be predicate adjectives, or they could be adjectives behaving as nouns, right? Adjectives as a noun substitute. Right? Just to give you a summary, remember we looked at these 3 things, the 3 uses of adjectives. Now, when we came across adjectives in the past, our favourite adjective was always agathos, wasn't it? Let me come back here. Let me get the screen up here for you. Back to our PowerPoints. Right? Our favourite adjective was agathos. And because an adjective has to agree with its noun in case, number, and gender, then the adjective has to be able to play across the board. Remember that. Because it might be wanting to agree with a masculine noun, or it might be wanting to agree with a feminine noun, or it might be wanting to agree with a neuter noun. And the noun that it's agreeing with might be nominative or accusative or genitive, might be singular, it might be plural. Okay, so adjectives have to be able to play across the whole board. And this is how the adjective behaved. Nicely, just the kind of endings that we'd like it to have. Everything worked nice and well. And we learned agathos as our favourite adjective. And then we learned a whole stack of adjectives that just behave exactly like agathos. They're in our vocab for chapter 5 in depth. And we've learnt them, and you will have a pile of words somewhere in your vocab list, which are your adjective piles. Okay? Right? So that's just all that we've looked at so far. That's all good and well. That was nice life back in summer school, which you thought was difficult at the time. But remember, today's hard Greek is 3 weeks times easy Greek, because you look back at that now and you go, wow. Okay, now my voice is starting to break up. All right. Let me see if I can fix that for us. Okay, my voice is starting to break up. Let me try and fix that, because I don't want that to be a problem for everybody. Let me just log on here again, and I'll change the way I'm doing that. Okay, how's that? Everybody good and happy? That working? Yeah, cool. All right. Okay, now, as I was saying, we want to, that was way back in our happy days of summer school. Everything was nice and easy. Now, I just want to highlight for a second here that, firstly, that hasn't changed, right?
So our adjective will still agree with our noun in case, number, and gender always. And so that's still the case. Even if we're talking, even if we want to put an adjective, one of those adjectives we've learned to go with one of our third declension nouns, for instance, it's still going to be exactly the same. Our third declension nouns look very different in the way that they tell us that they're a nominative masculine noun or something like that, nominative masculine singular noun, but they're still going to have the nominative masculine singular setup, right? It's still going to be exactly the same in terms of the article or in terms of the adjective that we've taken, for instance. So, for instance, if I wanted to say the good son, let me get this back up. Oh, no. Now I've lost my screen sharing privileges again. Okay. Let's see if I can fix that. There we go. Okay. All right. So if I wanted to say, for instance, the good sun, or the good star, sorry, the good star, then you can see I'd have ho, agathos, just like we always had, and then we'd have aster. Now, it doesn't look much like it. Well, it doesn't in the end, but this is still all agreeing, doesn't it? Because this is our nominative masculine singular article with our nominative masculine singular adjective describing our nominative masculine singular form for star, aster. It just doesn't look like it agrees much anymore because our third declension nouns look very different, but this is still all nominative masculine and singular. Are you with me so far? So we might have a normal kind of adjective describing our crazy kind of third declension nouns, but that's okay. We can cope with that because even though it doesn't look like it, we know that aster is a nominative singular form. It's just a third declension form, and so it's a little bit weird. It doesn't look like what we might want it to look like, but this is all still in agreement with each other. So the good star in the nominative singular form would be hot, agathos, aster. Okay? So I hope that made sense and just trying to clarify that for you and everybody's happy with that. Let's just stop for a second and make sure everyone's on page with me so far. Yeah? Everybody happy with that? If we put the article or an adjective with a third declension noun, they're not going to look the same, but they still are going to agree with each other. Yeah? Everybody's okay with that. Any questions about that at all? Getting lots of thumbs up. Okay, cool. All right. Now, the truth is, well, the truth is that there are a lot of adjectives that behave like agathos. By far, the majority of adjectives in the New Testament behave like agathos. And all the adjectives we've met so far behave like agathos, and that's all good. But the reality is there's a small group of adjectives that don't actually behave like agathos, and they actually have endings that look a lot more like the third declension endings that we've met, some of the third declension endings that we've met. And so we actually call these third declension adjectives. They're adjectives. They behave adjectives. All the rules of what we learn about how adjectives behave apply to these words as well, but they just follow the pattern more that looks like a third declension noun pattern than the agathos pattern. They don't follow the agathos pattern. They, in terms of their use for attributives and predicates and noun substitutes and all that, that's all exactly the same, but they're going to look differently. They're going to behave differently. They've got a different declension for the way that the adjective behaves. And unfortunately, just kind of like the third declension neuter nouns, there's two different groups of them. We actually have two different groups of third declension adjectives as well, right? Third declension adjectives we're talking about here. these are adjectives that behave more like the third declension pattern. And we've got two different groups of them. So let's come back and let's meet some of those groups here. The first group I'm talking about is these words right here. So I'm back in chapter 12, and I'm just talking here, just giving you two examples of it. Vocab chapter 12, it's my zone and plione. And these adjectives that fall in this group are usually this kind of words, comparative words, more or larger or greater or those kind of words. They're comparative kind of words. And these adjectives that are in this group that we're about to look at and learn how they behave are kind of like those comparative adjectives. But anyway, we're going to go with plione as our favorite word in this group. Now, the good news is they've got to play across the board. We just talked about that. Adjectives always have to play across the board. But these guys behave exactly the same in their masculine and their feminine. So that means we've doubled up on all our learning. And so this is how plione behaves. This first group of third declension adjectives, plione. And you'll see there's some good news here in terms of doubling up of our learning. The masculine and feminine endings basically take all the masculine and feminine endings that we just learned. Os, e, s, as, own, sin, right? These are all the endings exactly like we've learned for aster. So we're doubling up on these endings. So these third declension nouns, plione and others, these comparative nouns, if it was the masculine, if there were being an adjective connected to a masculine noun or an adjective connected to a feminine noun, they would take the same form every time. And the endings are exactly those kind of endings that we've already learned for aster. So that's nice. Plione, we've got that plione nominative singular thing, and it's a little bit different here again because the nominative singular is irregular, and we go down to an O instead of an O for the rest of our stem all the way down here. Okay, so that's how plione is going to behave when it's an adjective describing either a masculine or a feminine noun. It's going to be plione, pliona, plionos, plione, pliones, plionas, plionon, and plionsin. Notice that the nu has disappeared there on our dative plural. Okay, so that's how it's going to behave if it's an adjective describing either a masculine or a feminine noun. Now, the neuter, if it's an adjective describing a neuter noun, well, again, this is not so bad for us. These endings are kind of starting to look pretty familiar for us. On, they're nice neuter endings. Os, we just learned. E, own, and sin. These are all just pretty similar to the endings we just learned for soma, somatos, for instance, or just these endings here again coming across, particularly for the genitive and dative, similar endings. And the is a very common neuter plural ending, and the on is the neuter singular ending. So I know it's a whole stack more learning. I'm not going to deny that, but it's also not the end of the world. It's relatively good news in terms of how this adjective in this group behave. So again, these are just third declension adjectives. And when I say that, I don't mean adjectives that are describing third declension words. I don't mean that. We just looked at, we could have the good star or something like that. I mean, these are adjectives that are behaving, their paradigm, their declension looks a lot more like the third declension than our normal agathos adjectives do. So this is another group of adjectives that you need to be aware of and keep your wits about you for. Third declension adjectives, group number 1. Now, as I said, unfortunately, just like the neuter nouns, we can have third declension adjectives group number 1, and we've got third declension adjectives group number 2 as well. So let's come and have a look at them. And this time I'm back in chapter 13, just trying to help you make sense of where all this stuff comes from. Chapter 13, we're talking about words like alethes, true, truthful, genuine, or asthenes, weak, sick. All right? There's only 2 words given to us in duff in this group as well. So you can see how much smaller these third declension adjectives groups are than our agathos group. Our agathos group is much, much, much bigger than these smaller groups of words. But they're still pretty important words, and we need to learn how they behave as adjective as well. Okay, so the question is, how does this second group of third declension adjectives behave? Well, alethes is going to be our friend, and we're going to see how they behave here as well. And man, I can try and talk it up and make it sound like it's easy for you, but the reality is it's a whole nother paradigm to learn. Don't blame me, blame Greek. But there is some similarities here as well, and they do look a little bit like some of the stuff that we learned last week. But I'm not going to try and sugarcoat it for you. This is the way alethes behaves. Again, whether it's describing a masculine noun or a feminine noun as an adjective, whether it's connected to either a masculine or feminine noun, it's going to take this one form either way, and then there is its neuter form. So if alethes, this group is talking about a masculine or feminine noun, it'll be alethes. Let me get a pen up here. It'll be alethes, alethe, alethus, alethai, alethis, alethis, alethone, alethin, alethesin. And if this was an adjective that was describing a neuter noun, then it would take this form: alethes, alethes, alethus, alethai, alethe, alethe, alethesin, alethesin, alethone, sorry, alethone, alethesin. Okay, so this is our second group of third declension neuter nouns as well. All right, and we need to try and realize that both of these groups of nouns, both of these groups of adjectives, sorry, our second group of third declension adjectives, both of these groups of adjectives exist. They're words that behave like this, but they're just adjectives. Everything we learn about adjectives in terms of their form and their structure and how they describe and how they're related to nouns and those patterns of article, noun, article, adjective, all those things that we've learned about adjectives before will be exactly the same for all of these adjectives. They just got a different declension, different way of telling us who they are and what they're doing. So if I was to say the true son, for instance, right? We just learned true, alethes. If I was to say the true son, well, then I'd have ho, alethes, huios, for instance. Now, okay, this looks like my nominative singular. We're happy with this being a nominative singular masculine ending, and we're happy with this being a nominative singular masculine article. That's all good, but we just need to realize now that this actually is a nominative singular masculine adjective as well, because that's the way it works. Just alethes, when we want to talk about true, alethes is a very different looking adjective, but it still behaves exactly, it declines in a very different way, but its use as an adjective is exactly the same. So again, I just want to highlight here, when I talk about third declension adjectives, I'm not meaning an adjective describing a third declension noun, because here we have a third declension adjective that's describing a second declension noun, right? What I'm talking about is I'm talking about adjectives that follow a pattern that's much more like the third declension pattern. And that's exactly what we've got with alethes here. It's our second group of third declension adjectives. And I hope that's starting to make a bit of sense to you. So let's come back again, screen off for a second, and let's just see how many people I've confused. Is this making sense now still? Are you with me? A few more paradigms to learn, I realise, but that'll come. Don't worry about that for the moment. Is it making sense what these paradigms are, these other group of adjectives and how they behave? Any questions about that? Getting a few thumbs up. Everyone seems happy. Most people seem happy. Any questions? No questions. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys, and I'll put it up on Google Classroom in the paradigms section. I'll update the paradigm section, and I'll update the PowerPoint section as well after every day. But I'm going to give you guys a new practice sheet for your third declension paradigms. It's going to look something like this. Why is it not working? What's happening here? Okay. All right, here we go. So here's going to be your new practice sheet for your third declension nouns. It's got the stare, all right, from unisex third declension noun group that we learnt last week. And it's got the feminine third declension only and the masculine third declension only groups as well. And then it's going to have on it the two neuter groups that we just learnt today, soma and ethnos. Right, those two new neuter third declension noun groups. So that'll be all our third declension noun patterns together. There they are for you. So practice them for a little bit. And then at the bottom here, I've got underneath that your third declension adjectives that we just learned as well. So the plione adjectives and the alertes adjectives. And I've shown you in your vocab on Duff chapter 12 and Duff chapter 13 which words and which groups they are talking about, which words belong to those groups. Okay, so this is your new practice paradigm sheet for your third declension nouns. And I'll give that to you for the next week to practice on or so. As always, you can print out blank sheets here where you can just practice, typing that out until you've got it down pat in your brain and they are starting to get in there. Okay?
Okay.
How's that for everyone? Seems okay. Okay. Well, if everyone's happy with that, then that's great. I think you've learned way too much already today when it comes to Greek. There's a lot of paradigms there to get your head around. Just remember, this is the fog. Keep pushing through it and the fog will lift. Just like that beautiful mist that we had yesterday morning. It will lift out and the sun will shine. So keep pushing through the fog. It will disappear if you keep working hard on it. But we've got about 10 minutes left, and so what I thought I'd do, what I thought we'd work on, and this is nice because we haven't had a chance to do this much, I want to do a practice exercise with you. So I want you to turn to page 143 of Duff, if you've got it there. Page 143 of Duff. And let's see if we can do question 3 together in the next 10 minutes or so. Section A, question 3. Section A, question 3, page 143 of Duff. Has everyone got access to that? Let me know if that's a problem. Otherwise, start working on translating that. I'll start working on getting it up on the screen, and then we can talk together. Let me just give you one heads up and one tip. Section A, question 3, page 143. Just a quick tip for you. At the start of it there, you've got hot, just the article all by itself. And I think we have come across this perhaps in the past, but just to remind you if you've forgotten, the article can be by itself. And when it's sitting there by itself, it's basically just acting as a pronoun. Yeah, the one basically is how we might translate it. The one. So when I go to my verb and it says, yeah, it's a third person singular verb. Does it have a nominative noun? Yes, you do have a nominative noun here. It's just the article all by itself acting as a pronoun. There's a little tip for you. But work on question 3 together by yourselves or together or whatever. And then page 143, section A, question 3. Let me get it up on the screen here. And then we'll come together and talk about it. So just stay online and work on that. I'm here if you've got any questions. Okay, how are we all working on that? So we're going to run out of time, class time in a second. So let me try and get this up on the screen here. Let's see if we can have a look at this together quickly. Okay, I'm gonna work through this. See what you guys came up with. Whether you do something similar. Let me show you what I would do. I'm gonna break it down first. I want to find some punctuation. Is going to be my friend in all of these instances here. It's going to help me break up all these clauses. Then I want to try and find some verbs. And I can find a verb in the first clause here. It's I pen. We'll come back to that in a second. Esose and then upage. And then I want to bracket my prepositional phrases as well. I've got one prepositional phrase there. And so that's going to help me do all that. Now I want to come and I want to try and find out what my verbs are. I pen. I pen. Can anyone recognize that verb? That's a good question. Want to get that? That's on our table of principal parts, that one.
Second areas.
Anybody find it? Yongkwang?
Lego.
Yeah.
Lego, yeah, it is. That's our aorist principal part of Lego. Our aorist principal part of Lego. Let me come down here. We've got Lego. You can see it on your table of principal parts. And our aorist principal part is ipon. Tells you how the stem changes. Tells you what endings it likes to take. I like to take the imperfect endings. And you can see here we've got N as our ending here. And so basically this is going to be our third person singular. So it's going to be he, she, or it, aorist of Lego. He, she, or it said. All right? He, she, or it said. Okay, so I'm going to say, ask the question, does my sentence tell me who he, she, or it was that said? And the answer to that question is, yes, it does. It's just that hot here that I mentioned earlier. The one, or just he even, we could do that, that's fine. The one, a masculine singular pronoun. So the one said, the one said to her. All right, okay, we've got that dative, and it's the third person pronoun, but it's a feminine pronoun. So the one said to her, what did he say? He said, daughter. We just met this word. Look at there. And then, okay, now let's have a look at, let's get rid of this verb stuff here. And let's have a look at our next verb over here. We've got esose. Esose as my next verb. Okay, now what's the vocab word hiding behind that?
Sozo.
Sozo, yeah. So talk to me about this word and verb in the way I like to be spoken to about verbs. Anybody?
It looks aorist, but not sure which person it is or which, yeah, because it seems like it has an augment and a sigma.
Looks like it's got an augment. Looks like it's got a sigma because we've changed from that zeta, haven't we? So yeah, we're going to go with aorist. That's great. But what do we want it to have at the end here? So it's so what do we want it to have? Kind of want it to have a nu, don't we? That's what we'd like it to have. Elusin. We'd like it to have a nu there. But you might remember, if you have a look at Duff page 70, remember we did say that on that table there, sometimes that nu actually is in brackets because every now and then in the New Testament out in the wild, you'll see that nu just get dropped off for no apparent reason. And there's an example of what we've got going on here, just to keep us on our toes. So effectively, there's a nice little nu in there. Doesn't make any difference. It is aorist, active, indicative, third person singular form of sozo. Exactly right. Has healed would be the way we want to translate it. He, she, or it has healed. Does that sentence tell us who he, she, or it is? Yes, it does. It's got a nice little nominative noun here. The faith of you. Your faith has healed you. Daughter, your faith has healed you. Okay, then I got upage. So let's get out of this verb mess down here then.
Upago.
Upage, what's the vocab word hiding beneath it?
Upago.
It's upago, yeah. And so what's this ending telling me then?
Imperative, second person.
Imperative. Nice. It's a present, active, imperative, isn't it? Nice. Second person singular ending. Yeah, nice. Louis. So I'm going to translate that as go. Command. Go. In ice plus the accusative. Oops, he's changed colors here. Ice plus the accusative ending here. Into peace. Go in peace. So we can see from this example, we've got some of principal parts verbs in there. We've got some of our third declension nouns in there. We've got imperatives in there. It's a nice little practice exercise as well. Some personal pronouns in there as well, right? There's some nice little things going on in this, but trying to pull together some of the things that we've been learning over the last week or two. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. Any questions about that translation? Otherwise, we need to call it quits. It's time for another class.
Steve,
Henry.
can you tell us more about the use of the definite article there as it begins a sentence? I'm just a bit confused because I know in very old Greek, sometimes definite article is used also as a pronoun. So is it there being used as a pronoun? Is it?
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. Yeah. Definite article by itself with no other noun attached to it, then the definite article is being used as a pronoun. We might translate it as the one or something like that. Yeah, exactly right. Okay, team, we got plenty to learn. You've got translation for Friday to work on as homework with your translation groups. You've got paradigms to work on for your third declension nouns and adjectives. You've got your table of principal parts to still keep getting under your head. And you should be getting vocab chapters 12, 13, both of those vocabs, everything up to and including chapter 13 under your head before next Monday as well. So work on that and plenty to keep you busy. And I'll make sure that all those things are available to you in Google Classroom. Any other questions about where we're going and what's happening?
Well, I have a question, but it's not about where we're going or what's happening. It's regarding the translation that we just did. I'm looking at the punctuations. We have semicolons there, and then one there, and then a full stop at the end. I mean, when do the, okay, well, I'm thinking that we put inverted commas just before daughter, and maybe close them off after has saved. But then it seems like the sentence is continuing. So when do we end the inverted commas?
Well, remember, we've had this conversation in Greek several different times now. The Greek introduces speech, but it doesn't end it. We've got to make those decisions ourselves. But I'd say in this particular context, the whole thing is part of the speech. Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace. As the end of what I'm saying, or the end of what he says. Yeah. But this is always a bit of a tricky question when it comes to speech in Greek, because Greek can tell us, and here it doesn't even bother. There's no hottie at the start. There's nothing that introduces it. It's just that language of he said to her. So it's pretty obvious that now what is being written to us is what he said. But yeah, there's no end of speech marks in Greek. We've got to try and figure it out. But the context here, I think, makes it pretty clear that that's Jesus speaking all the way through. Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace. Yeah. Cool. Okay, cool, team. All right, we'll call that quits for the day. Thanks. I hope that was helpful for you. We've got one more lesson to look at third declension nouns together next week, and then we'll be done with third declension nouns. There's just a few more things that we still need to, a few more loose ends we need to tie up from chapters 12 and 13 that we'll get onto next week as well. And then we'll learn everything we need to know for third declension nouns. Cool. Otherwise, I'll see you. Have a good week.
Likewise. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you.